The holidays are just around the corner, and if you're feeling some mixed emotions of excitement and dread, I know the feeling. Sometimes you just have to think about what matters most to you and keep focused on the things that bring you joy. But you may also benefit from a little bit of help and focus on body kindness. So I invite you to join me in our wonderful body kindness community. Visit bodykindnessbook.com and click Get Started. When you give your name and email, you will get instant access to the free Body Kindness mini e-course. I'll be checking in with you over email, and you'll get invited to join our group on Facebook. If you have questions, shoot me an email. It's Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com.
When a human is struggling with anything and we open ourselves to other people being part of that process, we're really offering them an opportunity to demonstrate their humanness too. So initially, I really thought it was just about me and being not enough or whatever. But it's also about like the other people. People want to feel good because they're helping someone else. And I think on a whole, humans are good. And so allowing humanity to show up in graceful and surprising ways, I don't know, it certainly has left me grateful and occasionally awestruck.
That was Anna Sweeney. She is a registered dietitian, a certified eating disorder supervisor, and a certified intuitive eating specialist. She's an avid health at every size, non-diet dietitian. And what I think is just so amazingly important about Anna is that she proudly and newly identifies herself as a disabled woman, and she's excited about exploring the world with this new identity. Make sure you connect with her and follow her on Instagram. She's at Dietitian Anna, and I'll have that link in the show notes. And I just want to say before we dive into this body betrayal letter, how much I was floored by how Anna used her experiences as a child and how she uses this metaphor that you'll find and discover in the letter and in our conversation as a way to help us all really visualize the power and importance of resilience. Anna is really going to continue to accomplish many, many wonderful things in the world, I believe. She has something to say. She is a teacher, and she honestly teaches me every day, every time I connect with her on social, when I see her at a conference. I am so, so lucky to now call Anna a friend, and I am so excited to share this episode with you. I believe that Anna is going to continue to be a powerful voice so that we can really approach inclusivity and equality for all.
Dear body, here we are. To say that I had any idea that we would be here now would be to tell lies, but I'm grateful that we've finally arrived at this place. We've been through a lot together, and through the ups and downs, the struggle and triumph, you've stuck with me. You're very young when your boundaries are broken, and even though it didn't make sense, you did what you could to make sense of the world. Your nervous system was activated, and you were scared of a lot. Of loud noises, of dogs, of tornadoes on blue sky days, of being seen as different and simultaneously feeling different from your peers. You were doing the best you could. And you felt different because you were different. Your brain didn't turn off. Always thinking, ever achieving. And though the achievements came easy, nothing ever felt like enough. You put these stories in a box and started your collection. During adolescence, you did your best to fit the mold, despite always being told that you were mature for your age. I was frustrated with you for not cooperating in the boob department and embarrassed by the acne that I got instead. I remember you feeling really embarrassed to go swimming with your friends, dyeing your hair at a really young age. It was a South Dakota thing. and being excited by your first padded bra. Anything to change the characteristics that made you feel undesirable. You were the only girl without a boyfriend and made lots of meaning out of that. You were not enough. Enter box number 2. When you were 12, your nervous system went through its second shockwave. You learn that you're moving across the country and are told that you can't tell anyone of that news for a month. In that month, you cried a lot. You cried at home and suffered silently everywhere else. This is the second time you are made to hold an adult story with a young brain. Box number 3. And when you finally break the news, the front of your abdomen starts to change. You're mostly unalarmed by the odd, tingling numbness that you'd never experienced before. You talk with your mom about it, and because she didn't have an explanation, and we were all so stressed about the move, we literally moved on. With this adolescent brain, you became depressed. You felt like you had your forever friends. You would leave your first boyfriend and take his pillowcase covered in cologne on your cross-country drive. The tingly sensation stays with you until long after leaving your childhood home. At your new home, you struggle to make friends in comparison to your younger sister. You're convinced that if your hair were longer, or if you didn't wear tube socks, or if you wore more Abercrombie and Fitch, this wouldn't be the case. Box number 4. You try to hold on to relationships in South Dakota and cry when you get off the phone with friends who are together and sending their well wishes, but clearly moving on with their lives. I'm not doing that. Why are they able to do it so easily? Box number 5. You were 15 on the day you couldn't hold a pencil. And your grandfather, who was a doctor, encouraged your mom to take you to a neurologist to make sure that there was no nerve damage in your right arm. 2 days later, you're at a local hospital getting an MRI that lasts for what feels like forever. You're told by the radiology technician that the reason for the MRI is taking so long was because they were, quote, trying to rule out MS. You cried all the way home, and by the end of the night, you felt like you were on fire. The next day, you went to a Boston hospital. You spent 5 days on IV steroids, and after having been told that you had, quote, beautiful white spots on your brain, you accept the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. Box number 6. Your new friends rally around you, and even people who weren't your friends express their well wishes. You went back to school and were welcomed by everyone. The attention you were paid was overwhelming and felt amazing. You get used to people identifying you as the girl with MS and hear adults comment about how great you look. Mostly, you act in an age-appropriate fashion, and you're sad. You party too much. You remember your mom giving you your weekly injection when you were drinking, and she didn't know. You made a big deal out of being Anna and not Anna with MS. Over the course of your high school career, you have 13 flares. You become excellent at giving yourself injections and managing home infusions. You're not scared because you feel fine mostly. You're too young to understand the significance of this adult diagnosis. And you fight against your mother when she encourages you to go to the gym and to modify your diet. No thanks, Mom. By this time, you've become an outstanding barometer of stress. That stress is the precursor for your flares, and the whole family takes an MBSR course with John Kabat-Zinn. You're annoyed by eating raisins slowly. Your last flare in high school, and the first one to leave you with any permanent disability, came after a terrifying event. Box number 7. And this body was you trying to rescue me. You made my PTSD visible. You made it necessary for me to tell difficult truths and possible for me to speak of what needed to be spoken. You saw the boxes, and now other people did too. Body, over the years, you have rallied. You have accomplished a great deal, and now you are still rallying. And what feels abrupt, but probably isn't, you are shoved into the disability corner. Box number 8. You fight this with all that you have. You talk shit about yourself, and you don't protect yourself. You put yourself on a desperate last-ditch diet that leaves you heartbroken as it can't repair myelin. No shit. box number 9. And then for the first time, you experience what it feels like to actually be invisible, to not be addressed because you are scooting and not walking, box number 10. And because you are so shocked by your experience, so hurt, so appalled, and so pissed, you decide to make your boxes into a stage so big that no one can ignore. There used to be days that I resented you, and now I'm grateful for you. I miss wearing high heels. I miss running, but you're able to do a lot of things. And you're wise enough to ask for help when you need it. You are strong and getting stronger. You are independent. You are driven. You are smart. And you are safe. You, body, are home.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that with me. It was so powerful. My hand hurts from taking notes. I have a lot I want to talk to you about, but I got to start with the boxes. It's very interesting to me. I'm feeling a metaphor out of it. So I heard 10 boxes, and they seem to connect to a unique experience you had. So can you tell me, what do you mean by the boxes?
Sure. So this actually came entirely this is the first time I've ever written a letter to my body. And I don't know, it kind of came to me from a metaphorical perspective, and thinking about the way that I used to kind of compartmentalize parts of myself that felt so uncomfortable. And I obviously wasn't putting things into literal boxes, but I don't think that I'm unique in wanting to place the parts that feel unsafe, uncomfortable, vulnerable into kind of tidy little boxes that you can just stack in the corner. And so I use that language through this writing because I think that it really spoke to the way that I have, over the course of my life, taken difficult moments, whatever they are, and I think, one, probably made way more meaning out of them than they deserved, but two, didn't necessarily allow myself to fully process them until much later in my life. And so I put things into these tidy little containers that no one could see. And now I want to stand on a stage of all of my boxes.
Wow. So, okay. So I was first getting the vision of you were in the box, but it's actually what you're doing. So this is making me think of, I always feel like I bring up Brene Brown in every podcast.
Amen.
Because it's making me think of shame, right? Like you're taking a part of you that you feel you don't want to be part of you. And you're taking this experience, you're putting it in a box, and you're hiding it in shame. Like, this is not allowed to be part of who I am.
Yeah.
Wow. So why do you think you needed to do that? I guess overall, like, how was that helpful? You know, I believe that we do everything. There's always a helpful benefit, even to something that sounds really unhelpful. So why do you think that was helpful as you were going through all these experiences?
I think early on in my life, Rebecca, I've always been a caretaker, and I've always been someone who has not wanted to kind of upset the apple cart. And that means that I've been protective of the people around me. But I also, I have very early memories of feeling like there was just not something about me was just not the kind of, I just wanted to be average, but I just wasn't average. Mm-hmm. And as I had these life experiences that were so different from that of my peers, and I think I'm super compassionate with that young part of myself now, but I wasn't able to be then. And it felt as though it was kind of a mark against me because I had all of these characteristics that made me just so different. Mm-hmm.
And different, it's difficult even as adults to embrace our differences, but especially as kids. Like, I remember you mentioning in your letter about being 12, and I'm thinking, okay, 12-year-old girls are supposed to be getting their periods and not having difficulty with their body movements.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So that was part of that. Like, you could accept my boobs aren't as big as I want, so I'll get a padded bra and okay, yay. But there are certain things that you had to deal with where your body just wasn't acting like a normal kid's body does, and you didn't really know how to process it. And it sounds like you didn't really get the diagnosis until 15 when you couldn't hold a pencil.
Yeah, I had my first flare when I was 12 years old, and I will speak a little bit more with a little bit more detail. My father told me that we were moving across the country.
Mm-hmm.
My dad is from the Boston area,
Mm-hmm.
and I was raised in Rapid City, South Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad told me that we were coming back home or to his home, whatever. And the actual stress of not being able to talk about it and not really being able to process. This is something that my father and I have very, very rarely spoken of, but and I think my dad is one of my best friends,
Mm-hmm.
but he has expressed a lot of regret and remorse about having shared so early the information that he did with me. But I couldn't tell my sister, I couldn't tell anybody. And I think that was the first time that I actually went through, not the first time, but the first time that I was old enough to recognize what physiological stress was.
Mm-hmm.
And it resulted in my first MS flare, which was simply involved, it was simply sensory. So my abdomen was tingly and numb and all bizarre, but because of the fact that I had scar tissue when I was admitted to Children's Hospital when I was 15, because I had scar tissue in my brain and active, illuminating lesions at that moment, that was the reason why I was diagnosed with MS and not something like Lyme disease or something else.
Mm-hmm.
It was based on the fact that I had a historical demyelinating experience.
Mm-hmm. Could you just give a brief top line? So my brother-in-law has MS, and that was the first. When he was first diagnosed was the first I sort of got to know a little bit more about it. And then through the years, I have worked with clients, a small number of clients with MS. But just for those who may not know, can you kind of share just a top line information so they can understand?
Absolutely. So what happens in multiple sclerosis, all of our nerves are covered by this protective myelin sheath. And if you think about an electrical cord, like even on headphones to whatever, or something plugging into the wall, that plastic coating is really important to make sure that the electricity gets from the wall into whatever it is that you are trying to power.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine what would happen if you cut that coating, like if you just started cutting slits into the plastic coating on the outside, the messaging wouldn't be as clear. So there would be lost electricity. It would be shunted into other directions. Wow. And it would mean that you wouldn't have smooth nerve conduction. Mm-hmm. And MS affects a lot of people in different ways. For me, fortunately, it has not affected my cognitive abilities, but it certainly has affected my physical abilities.
Mm-hmm. And so when you talked about stress, so I'm kind of jumping around going back to your dad, but I'm imagining a 12-year-old hearing, so what it sounds like is you're hearing that you're about to make this big move, which even at 12, it's like, I mean, I remember your world is your school and your friends, and that's what you know. And it's like, way to rip the rug out from under my feet and hold me to secrecy to not tell anybody else. Yeah. So that just created a big amount of stress. And like your dad said, he might not have had intention to bring that stress to you.
Not his best parenting moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've definitely had some experiences growing up where I was asked to be secretive. We had big financial trouble, so it was mostly around bills and hiding. But I felt horrible, like in kids. So I do think that, I think parents do try to do the best they can, and they don't necessarily know where they make mistakes. But so can stress trigger flare-ups then? Like, it's not that it caused it, right? That is this genetic?
So MS is a multi-causal disease, and it is genetic and it is environmental. And I just read something in Scientific American about there being a particular bacteria that lives in the gut that actually destroys myelin.
Oh.
So, no, fascinating, right?
Yeah, totally.
So there are a billion things, and it's about where you are on the planet, because if you're closer to the equator, the odds of you having MS are far lower. But everyone will say it is a multi-causal disease. There is, in my family at least, there's no genetic predisposition. I'm a trendsetter. No one came before me. But it can happen for a multitude of reasons.
Okay. And what, when you did first get that diagnosis, I mean, I can't imagine being 15. You describe like your body feels like it's on fire, and then you hear these words. Like, what was the emotion of the lowest point of that for you?
Honestly, Rebecca, I didn't look into MS, although my mother had a friend with MS, and she described her experience of having like pine cones in her bladder. That's not been my experience, fortunately, but it took me a really long time to actually be interested in learning more about MS. So, and again, I really love science. I'm interested in all of this stuff, but I don't think that I actually did, say, a Google search of MS for, I mean, Google searching wasn't actually a thing. Not yet. Close, but not yet.
You did Ask Jeeves.
I did something like that. And so, I wasn't, when I was 15, I had such an adolescent brain. It was just like, well, this is not actually going to touch me, right? So I have this diagnosis, and everyone around me is making this really big thing. And every adult that I saw told me how amazing that I looked. But really, what I understand about MS now is so different from what I understood of it when I was a child. But when I was a kid, I wasn't in a position to
grasp it, really.
At all.
Yeah.
It was too big.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. Again, the value of the purpose of the boxes.
Right.
You mentioned in your letter, and I wrote down the word connection. So again, Brene Brown, thank you. But I'm thinking about, so you're out of the hospital and you go back to school, and I'm imagining balloons and signs and hugs and so was that what it was like? Okay, tell me more about that, because so Brene Brown says connection is why we're here, that we are meant to belong.
Of course.
So tell me about what that experience was like and what it did for you.
So this is actually, and as an eating disorder dietitian, I actually will wrap this back around. But the first time that I was admitted, so I was admitted to Children's Hospital. I was there for 5 days. I mean, there used to be a time when I actually kept these cards. I don't know where they are anymore. They might be at my parents' house. They might not. I can't tell you the number of cards that I got. My friend Kyle had made this card on 11 by 17 pieces of paper, these massive pieces of paper. And I got signatures from all of the hot senior boys and
yes,
people. Well, right. These people, I was a freshman. All of these people who probably didn't know that I existed were now, coming out of the woodwork. I remember I went to a Dave Matthews concert that summer, and I remember having one of these kind of hot older guys walking out of the concert with his arm around my waist and feeling like I might just die right there. No, but I had this really extraordinary outpouring of love and care and the feeling of, I think it was just recognition in a way that I've never experienced and will, I hope, never experience again, at least not like that. And the difficult part for me was because I had 13 additional flares in high school. I was hospitalized a lot. I did a lot of home-based treatment, and nothing ever compared to that first time, because very quickly it became, oh, Anna has MS. So I would go to school with PICC lines in my wrist or in my anticube, and nobody's making a big deal of it, even though every single time I flared, I went back to that initial terrified, oh my God, what is this? What's happening? The emotional response from my peers was nothing in comparison to what it was that first time. And I think I'm thinking about that in terms of some of our patients and what happens, the first time they get they seek eating disorder treatment and go back into their lives and are met with this extraordinary reception.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully, right? We hope.
Hopefully,
Yeah, we hope they at least get one.
Right, exactly. I got all of them,
Mm-hmm.
and that again, it was a very odd thing, but it was kind of fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And after I had my first flare. They put me on steroids, and I went back to school, and I felt awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like I walked normally, I felt fine. I just now had this disease that at that time I was like, oh, this is no big deal. It's never going to actually be a thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I really think that our conversation is going to help podcast listeners tremendously, and especially folks that are in the insiders group I have on Facebook, because there are several people. I can think of at least 10 different conversations recently where we've talked about having difficulty when their body can't do what, our culture deems as easy or normal. And so it could be from back pain to fibromyalgia to just, literally regular physical activity, or these types of things that I see held up as ideal, certain yoga poses even, I want to, but it's this feeling of I feel betrayed by my body. I can't do this. And so, what I think they need and can benefit from is understanding that they're not alone, and there's lots of different ways that people experience pain, and some get conditions and some get diseases, and that's not the end of the story.
Of course not.
But I think it can feel that way, and I think that is, you said something in your letter. You talked about just being Anna, not Anna with MS.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm picking up like a label, I guess, so to speak, that could feel negative. So do you want to share a little bit more about what you meant in that line?
So when I was young, it's kind of funny because it didn't matter that people knew that I had MS because I didn't have any physical ramifications of having MS. And that certainly, I think about, I wrote my college admissions essay about the new normal, being Anna with MS, but just really wanting to be Anna. And now, here we are, actually in a couple of months, it's going to be 20 years later.
Wow. I
am pretty proud to be Anna with MS because and don't get me wrong, this has not been a smooth process, and I'll be very frank with you. I really, really, really fought my disability. I think on a whole, 2016 unilaterally was just a shit year. And it was a real shit year for me physically. Yeah. And so my sense is that was the year when, in terms of my physical decline, things really became permanent and we're not messing around anymore. Mm-hmm. And I had for such a long time tried to just live as though I didn't have MS and tried to not allow people to help. I mean, I'm so independent and so like doing things on my own, and just, I think there is so much grace in being able to ask for help when you need it, and to be able to receive help and not have that feel like someone is just pitying me. Because initially it really felt like, God damn it, this is just, everyone just feels bad for the gimpy girl. Mm-hmm. Really, I mean, we are offering, when a human is struggling with anything and we open ourselves to other people being part of that process, we're really offering them an opportunity to demonstrate their humanness too. So initially I really thought it was just about me and being not enough or whatever, but it's also about the other people. People want to feel good because they're helping someone else. And I think on a whole, humans are good. And so allowing humanity to show up in graceful and surprising ways I don't know, it certainly has left me grateful and occasionally awestruck.
Mm-hmm. You, I mean, it's so brilliant, this example. You are, what I'm hearing is your awareness and understanding that you're fearing getting sympathy when what you need as a human is empathy. And that there is a big difference in those two.
Yeah.
And that you're also acknowledging that other human beings want to practice empathy, but they need permission from the person who needs the support and the help.
And there are times when I'm like, can I swear on this?
Absolutely.
Okay. There are times when I'm like, get the fuck away from me. I want to do this myself. And there are other times when I feel like, yeah, like no big deal. You want to help me? Sure. I'll totally take your help. And it doesn't hurt me at all. And it maybe makes you feel better. And it maybe makes you feel nothing, but it makes my life a little bit easier. Like, that's a great situation. We're all winning. And it's been such a journey for me because I really will say I am absolutely a recovered body shit talker. Like
you need to meme that. Recovered body shit talker.
It's a true statement. Like I made a shit talking jar because I used to talk about my right leg, like this stupid right leg. Like I would say this in front of colleagues, in front of anyone. It was coming from a self-protective, wanting to defend myself space. And what I have found is that it doesn't actually matter, right? I might have a really great day, and on a really great physical day, I can be superbly appreciative for having that really great day. And it's all relative, right? I'm not ever going to run a marathon. But I also can have really hard days, and I can find gratitude and grace in both. I don't have to put all of my stock in the like, oh my God, my leg is terrible and it's never going to be better. Because when I've done that, I've really gotten stuck in that vortex of just like, this is the worst, this is the worst, this is the worst, it's only going to get worse. And I'm not saying that there's that, like a self-fulfilling prophecy isn't necessarily a thing, but I have personally found that the energy that I put into the world and the kind of what I expect of myself and what I hope for from my body, I can actually put myself in a position where I can be more predictive about what is going to actually happen just based on what I am saying to myself. If I am being mean to me, I don't think that my body is going to cooperate in kind. It just doesn't work that way. It's like a Chinese finger trap thing. Like I can be a real asshole and really like try and grit and bear it through it, but it doesn't make my body any more cooperative. But if I breathe and if I slow down, it doesn't make it so I don't have MS. It doesn't make it so that I am particularly more physically able. And I don't feel encumbered by all of that negative, swarmy shit.
Right. Like this talk is unhelpful. It's, talking isn't going to chase the MS away, or if it's a listener with fibromyalgia or something else that they want to put in that box, right?
Or any kind of negative body image.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
It doesn't matter. Talking shit about a body doesn't make a body different. It just makes the way you experience your body horrible.
Right. Yeah. So it's guaranteed not to help. Could be harmful. Because, I'm 100% with you on the mind-body connection and, energy and all that stuff, with that saying shit in, shit out and that whole thing, Yeah. And you don't have to fake that sort of, I know people say fake it till you make it, or,
I hate the expression.
Yeah, I don't think it's faked optimism as much as being able to say your truth and make space for that truth, even if it's a bad feeling, but then asking, what is it that I could do that is good, that is kind, that is compassionate for me right now? Because I'll still take care of this body that is betraying me in some way.
Yeah. And the thing is, it doesn't, I don't know. It's very different. I feel as though, actually the last time I saw you, I feel like having learned from some experience of being kind of invisible and having really had that experience, I've really changed the way that I interact with my body. And I can't tell you how grateful I am for that experience having had happen. It was very, very difficult for me. But I am so confident in saying that I can acknowledge, and there are moments when I'm really sad and I might need to cry and I might need a hug and I might need to just kind of sit in the shit and be like, oh, this is really hard. There's nothing about this that is simple. And giving myself kind of permission to feel that and actually really, process it makes it possible for me to also end up at the end of that story. I'm still being kind.
Do you mind sharing a little bit more about the feeling invisible piece, just for listeners to understand? Because I think it's worth it, because it's...
I sure don't.
All right. So go ahead and share.
So I don't need to... Well, okay. So I went to a conference, and this was a conference at a very large resort. And for the first... I didn't know at this time that I can actually bring my own wheelchair in airports, and they'll check them like whatever the baby... whatever strollers, right? Like I can just check it like a stroller, no big deal. I didn't know this. Wow. So I rented a big scooter, and I was at a conference in a casino with 900 eating disorder professionals. And what I experienced when I was with these eating disorder professionals, my peers who are supposedly, we practice being inclusive of all bodies and health at every size. And we want diversity. What I experienced was actually being overlooked. People talking about me. I wonder why she's sitting in the chair, like in earshot of me. No, very few people making eye contact with me. I plastered a smile on my face for the entire time that I was there. And at the end of the conference, I had a woman come up to me and say, "I'm so grateful. It's been so nice seeing you smile." But she didn't ask me, what's your name? Why are you sitting in a chair? Any of these things. And so I live with thin privilege. I have never in my life experienced not being physically appraised, but to actually experience feeling invisible was fascinating. And it taught me so much, because I think about, like you might see a kid with a helmet or something like that. And it feels like the polite thing is to just not look at the kid because it draws attention to the fact that the child is wearing a helmet or an adult with a whatever. But what is actually happening is that you're basically erasing that person from your field of vision. It is like the most disrespectful thing that I have ever felt in my life. And it makes me think a lot about my privilege. So I have my little wheelchair, and literally it's made for my body. And I think about how much privilege I have being a small person sitting in a small wheelchair, where people, even strangers, will like look me in the eye. And that's a privilege, right? Because if I lived in a different body, that might not be my experience. And I will never, ever, ever, as long as I can help it, I won't rent another scooter. And
so interesting. So you think the scooter, you think the size of the scooter played a factor?
Okay. I don't know if it was the size of the scooter or literally because I was sitting down and everybody else was standing up. Yeah. But there were people that knew that I was going to be at this event that literally walked past me.
Yeah, this is just, I mean,
But
so
that's about other people's discomfort, right?
yeah,
With whatever is other, people don't want to look at that other thing, and they think it's out of being polite, and I don't want to stare.
that's the
And that's
bullshit.
it's
That's the
just
bullshit,
that's the
though.
bullshit. That's the bullshit. It's entirely false, and that's why I am so excited to be. This is why I'm so excited about having my stage, because I feel as though I have a unique opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to speak to my lived experience, acknowledging all the privilege that I have and I come with,
Mm-hmm.
but to really speak to my experience. Because really what happened there, of all the places in the world where I could have been,
Mm-hmm.
that shouldn't have happened.
Mm-mm.
It
No.
didn't happen when I was on the casino floor, like the regular casino floor with all of the, I mean, granted, they've probably been drinking since like 2 a.m., but they made eye contact with me and
Yeah.
everybody was smiling.
Yeah. Wow,
That's all.
so that's interesting. So because I mean what I'm sensing what you're trying to say is like I'm a whole human no matter what, right? So whether it's somebody who's in a wheelchair, somebody who is missing a leg, somebody who is in a larger body, somebody who is in, yeah, anything. Like our body is this container, and no matter what, we are whole humans who
Mhm.
need that connection, who deserve the eye contact and the smile and the some type of connection and a sense of that I matter, like I matter and I'm welcome here.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do think, I mean, while I'm grateful you got smiles on the casino floor, I do think that there is, I'm thinking of my niece with Down syndrome and how much her mom advocates for her to be seen as just
Mhm.
like anyone else.
Mhm.
And I think there is a real learning we need to do in our culture about embracing humanness. And, even if it's just simply telling people what to do. So if you could you have a platform here, this is part of your stage. What would you tell people, like one simple thing you could do that would help anyone who needed to be seen?
Honestly, I think the most important thing, and the thing that I have taken away from my experience,
Mm-hmm.
the value of actually making eye contact with another human, the value of having the balls to not look away
Mm-hmm.
and not pretend that you're looking away is actually about protecting someone else. If
Mm-hmm.
you choose to look away because you are uncomfortable, I think it's really important that you know that that's about you, not
Mm-hmm.
about anybody else. And you're actually not making that person feel better. You're making that person feel like they don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm not even saying everyone has to smile, but I find if someone will just look me in the eyes, even though if I'm sitting in a chair,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't always do, but if I'm sitting in a chair, I'm 2.5 feet lower than your eyes, which
Mm-hmm.
means you have to make an active effort
Mm-hmm.
to me. But I
Mm-hmm.
swear I'm going to be looking straight up at you. And it looks, and to just be seen and just
Mm-hmm.
be acknowledged as kind of existing.
Mm-hmm.
I think, to me, the biggest message, and this is a lesson that I have learned, and I'm sad that I didn't learn this earlier in my life because I know that I haven't always behaved this way.
Mm-hmm.
But if there is ever a time where you are coming in contact with that which is other,
Mm-hmm.
don't fool yourself to believe that you not looking is making them feel better.
Mm-hmm.
It is not.
Yes, 100%. And I mean, literally, even thinking about it could be as simple as say, you know what, today I know I'm going to be out in public in several different scenarios, and
Yep.
I'm just going to look at people on the street instead of
Yep.
in my phone. Like
Yep.
everyone, I'm just going to practice saying hi. And
Mm-hmm.
especially if I see someone who is blind
Mm-hmm.
or somebody in a wheelchair, like I am on the street and I'm walking past them. I see them. I can look
Mm-hmm.
and I can say hello. I can offer a
Yep.
greeting. And
Yep.
I think that practice would make the individual feel less uncomfortable. right? Like
without
an exposure.
without any question,
Yeah.
without any question. And it's interesting. So I've spoken about this a couple of times, and I've had colleagues say I've been really conscious of making this change and saying hello when I might have otherwise not looked. And like the fact that it doesn't really result in any discomfort on the perspective of the person who is like giving the smile doesn't make that person uncomfortable, and it actually makes the other person that much happier. Maybe if you can, I mean, we are here to support one another on this planet. I think that is like our mission as humans. And if we can make each other's lives just a little bit easier, why wouldn't we?
I know. And it reminds me of the spiraling up in body kindness, is it's just
Amen.
like, you are going to get a benefit out of that connection, and so is the other person.
Yes.
So why not?
Why, like there is no downside to acknowledging all humans as humans.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I do want to ask one more thing. In your letter, it was after box 10, and it was like this 180, like, body, you are strong and you're getting stronger. And so as a listener to the letter, I'm like, oh, what happened? What created this good shift? And my guess is it probably wasn't one big thing. And I feel like we talked about the age differences being something.
Yeah.
But anything else that you could, because really this is a story of resilience, and this really is post-traumatic growth, where you've said several times, I am grateful for these experiences because of who I am today. That is, the definition. So I know others need to figure out how they can grow. And so how can you enlighten us on how to get from that, pessimism to optimism, or, there's a clear mindset shift that happened with you?
So to answer your question about what box 10 was all about, so I went on a crazy MS diet, really trying to, save my brain. This is a place where I was not feeling well. So box 10 is kind of a culmination of what happened at the conference, of being invisible, but also having the experience of having this diet. And it was so weird because I am a completely non-diet dietitian. And this is what makes me and now I have this lived experience of being all the more cautious about, like, quote, therapeutic diets. Because initially when I started, I was like, well, I'm way too smart to not try this. And in retrospect, I'm way too smart to think that was going to be a thing that was going to make it so that I didn't have MS. So like, I'm not a dummy, but this is what desperation does to people. And so my box 10s were about my kind of being able to reflect on the reality of diets really pretty unilaterally not working, or in my case, I still have MS. And then also having that experience of being invisible. And now I'm just not ever going to compromise myself again for the sake of, really kind of for the sake of anything. And I don't know that I'm answering your question.
Well, no, you are, because we're talking about, like, what happened with the mindset shift. And that what you just said was a statement of resilience. Like, I value my well-being too much to let other things, like miracle diet cures,
Like, it was such a good idea. When I thought of it, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be great. But it was disgusting.
Yeah. Well, I really loved your quote saying this is what desperation causes you to do, because that is, as you know, everyone we work with, we all live and breathe in a diet culture. So take away medical diagnoses, just anyone.
Of course.
Even if you fit the sort of, these quote, passes thin, right? You're still getting diety messages. You're still getting these messages about this can save you. And I've seen a boon in my counseling practice. I don't even focus on the aging population, but I'm getting referrals from long-term care centers because the residents' family members and spouses are having them do ketogenic with dementia, and they're losing weight. And, when they, it's so messed up because, even in that realm of medical nutrition therapy, the evidence is so weak.
Right.
And I do think it's
such a new science.
Yeah.
We're just not there.
Yeah.
We're just not there. And I mean, this was like, this book has on the cover, like, how I healed myself from progressive MS. That's not a thing. That's like literally healing from progressive MS is literally not a thing.
Right.
And like, I got sucked straight in there. And then I came out like livid and fire breathing and deciding like, I'm done. I'm not doing any of this. I'm not compromising myself. And I got so much supervision about whether or not I was even going to do it because it felt so contrary to everything that I believe in. And I'm grateful that I tried it so that I can say it really, really is not a thing that works. I would like to have 4 months of my life back.
Yeah. And which is a message to anyone who is thinking about, that sort of miracle desperation, maybe like, don't do it because you can't get that time back. And to me, that's your part of like your version of of a diet, like a desperation diet rock bottom. Like it didn't have to be about losing weight. Like you talked about, like you meet the thin ideal, and that is something too that, I was talking about listeners to take away this idea of that, if somebody saw this headshot, saw these pictures of you laughing and being happy, they could make up this story about how your life was perfect and that their life is horrible because they don't look like you. Do you see what I'm saying? And so it's like we often make up stories and we compare and despair, right? We compare this other person's life is, if I had that, then I'd be happy. And I think that's a huge mistake because we make up stories. We don't truly know their stories.
Correct.
We're more alike than we are different, right? And it's absolutely, you have acknowledged your privilege in being in a thin body. And so it's not to say, I mean, I think you made a connection between, when I was seen invisible, I finally felt what it felt like when other people talk about feeling invisible too. And that is not good, right? So there's all these connections you're able to make where, if we recognize our common humanity, if we recognize that we're more alike than we are different, we don't need to put ourselves down by making up stories that other people must have it better just based on how they look, and to try to focus on compassion for ourselves and connecting to others.
Yes.
We then can pass the empathy. And I think in your story, be open to giving permission for that connection and that help and that love and that support as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think all those things are the layers of what gave you resilience. And like you said, that sort of rock bottom, this shit ain't right. I'm out. Never again will I let these things hurt me. Bad things might happen, but I am too worthy of a person to be drawn down by the message of you're not good enough.
Yeah. And I'm just too loud and super fucking ornery. And like, that's just not happening again. It doesn't matter it just doesn't matter where I am.
Yeah.
At all.
But like you said, it's your stage, you're done with the boxes. Yep. I have this visual of you of each box lined up and you're like, ta-da. Yes. And it's necessary advocacy and activism, but also with compassion, Of
course. We don't get here without that.
Yep. And we all got boxes of shit somewhere, right?
I know I'm not the only one.
Yes, but your story is going to help so many people, and I'm so grateful for the time you gave me today. And I just want people to be able to connect with you and take in more of your kindness and inspiration. So where would be the best place for Body Kindness listeners to follow and connect with you?
So I am at Dietitian Anna on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm actually, I have to say, I have like really upped my Instagram game of late. So I'd really love some more followers just because I'm excited like making all of these cool graphical things. So come along. And my business name is Whole Life Nutrition, and you can find me on Facebook under Whole Life Nutrition Counseling. Okay. And so that's my Facebook page. But I really come hang out with me on Instagram because I am really proud of myself.
As you should be. I love Insta too. I will put all those links in the show notes, and I'll put the Instagram in the sort of iTunes now has sort of like give us a 2-sentence version of your episode. So I'll make sure they get that up nice and high. And then all the other links will be in the more detailed show notes. Thank you so much for talking with me today. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And that's the episode. If you have your own body betrayal story, I'd love to hear it. Please shoot me an email at rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com. That's REBECCA @bodykindnessbook.com. And let's continue the conversation in my free Facebook group. Search Body Kindness Podcast on Facebook and request to join. And if you like listening, please leave a rating and review or tell a friend. If you'd like to hear how you can get signed Body Kindness books for gifts for the holiday season or special events, email me, Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com.